Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Mr. Pandaria raiding guide, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the 10-man heroic mode version of Will of the Emperor in the Moghashan Vaults raid. Now in order to complete this fight we use 2 tanks, 2 healers and 6 DPS. The very basics of this fight are still pretty much the same as normal mode, so it is a good idea that you do have an understanding of the normal mode version of this encounter, which I'm sure you already do. When putting together your raid composition, you also want to make sure that you're getting raiders that are able to soak a high damage ability, such as your priests with dispersions, hunters with deterrence, or even resto druids that can symbiosis hunters and gain deterrence from that. You can also get warlocks and death knights, they have soaking abilities as well that are really useful for this fight. And if you do manage to get a rogue, then you will just be laughing your way to an easy heroic kill. Now, surprisingly, for the first ability that's had a major change, it actually deals less damage on heroic mode than it does on normal mode. However, the Titan Gas is active for the whole of the encounter, so in the long run it will be dealing a hell of a lot more damage to your entire raid, and your 2 healers will need to figure out when and when not to use any form of cooldowns in order to keep up with healing, but 15,000 frost damage every second doesn't really seem like that much. Now, because when Titan Gas's cast has been changed, as in it's now constant, it's not like every now and then like it was on normal mode, there is a bit of a difference in the way you actually DPS the bosses, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. And the second ability, which is a heroic only mode ability, so it's a new one for this fight, goes by the name of Titan Spark, and this is when any of the boss's little adds around the room, such as your courages, your rages, your strengths die, they will create a Titan Spark where they die, and this will fixate on a random player, which will then slowly move towards that player until the player dies or the spark can no longer attack them. And if the spark is anywhere near any of the players, it will blow up, inflict 750,000 nature damage, and it will also energize any of the main bosses, so Yanzi or the other one, I've forgotten his name, Quincy, that's the one, I can't pronounce them. And this will increase their attack speed by 50% for 2 minutes, and this is a stacking buff on the bosses. So you don't want these exploding near the bosses, and as you probably guessed, this is where you're going to need your quote-unquote soakers with dispersion, deterrence, etc. We'll speak about that in a moment. So, first of all, let's talk ads, because everybody loves the ads, and ad control in this fight is what's going to get you a kill. Now, you need good control. That's the key point here. And again, just like in normal mode, you will get your 3 sets of ads spawning, your courages, which will fixate on the furthest away tank, your strengths, and also your rages. Again, the rages will spawn in pairs of 2, and the other 2 are just on their own, the poor lonely people. Now, what you want to be doing ideally is killing both of the rages at the same time, because when they both die they will leave a Titan Spark on the floor, and then what you need to do is get one of your players that has its soaking ability active, such as your hunter with deterrence, to run into the sparks and blow them up away from the raid. Again, you need to be doing this with the strengths and the courages. For our courage we had a warlock soak the spark, and for the strength we had a death knight solo down the strength just to the side of the room, because obviously you can death grip it for aggro and just keep it away from the whole raid, and then soak the spark himself. Now, what you don't see us do in this video is CC the rages, and this is because we found it easier to just kill off the rages 2 at a time as they spawn and then soak the sparks. However, this does mean you will have less uptime on the boss, because what you can do is CC the first set of rages, and then when the next 2 spawn, you obviously have 4 together, you keep them where they are with a druid's Ursul's Vortex or a mage's Ring of Frost, and then you kill off those 4 at the same time. Obviously you'll get 4 Titan Sparks, but one person can still soak all of them. This means that while your first 2 have been CC'd and you're waiting for the next 2 to spawn, your ranged DPS and possibly your melee DPS can focus on doing a bit of damage to the boss itself. If you do opt to use the crowd control strategy, you will need less people with soaking abilities, because you don't have as many sets of sparks to soak. You're taking 1 set of 4 instead of 2 sets of 2, so you just need 1 as opposed to 2 players. It can help out quite a bit, because it doesn't mean you have to bring class specific people to the fight. The best way to tell when you're going to get some uptime on the boss as well, and you want to use your Bloodlust, Time Warp heroisms in this phase, quote unquote, is when you've killed 5 sets of rages. And once the 5th set's died, you want to just turn around and go on the boss, leave whoever's killing the strength to the side of the room just to finish that off. No one bother helping him out, he can do that himself. And also make sure that any courages that might be up for whatever reason, which shouldn't be up, are dead. And then you get 20 seconds possibly on the boss, but you'll find out that as the fight goes on, this is more than enough time really to keep some damage on the boss, because your tanks also still dance around like idiots. However, in heroic mode they will take 10 things to dodge, 10 strikes to dodge, as opposed to 5 in the normal mode, and pressing your button will deal 1 million damage as opposed to 500,000 damage. So tanks get a nice little ranking on the DPS charts in this fight. It might also be worth noting that with the strengths that are tanked to the side of the room out the way just by, in this case we had a Death Knight do it, he just took it to the side of the room, tanked it there on his own and killed it off. It might be worth, say, your dot classes, your Shadow Priests, your Warlocks, your Fire Mages, or even Arcane Mages with your Nether Tempest, whoop whoop, just putting the odd dot on that mob in order to help out the person that's killing the strength. But don't over aggro, because if it does come within the raid and then cast his nice little frontal AoE ability, he will obviously stun players, and this is going to be increased damage, and you don't want it to happen. So that's going to do it for this raiding guide. This fight I think was really fun from a healing point of view. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think as a guild and a 10-man raiding group, we decided that this was probably one of the better fights out of the patch 5.0 tier. And you want to get this killed soon, otherwise you're not going to get your Feat of Strength, because patch 5.2 is just around the corner, and once that hits, the Feat of Strengths are gone. They're only there for people that kill this boss before the release of patch 5.2. So as always, thank you for watching, and if you're interested in future Mists of Pandaria raiding guides from 5.2 onwards, then please do feel free to subscribe to the channel.